we're going to go through how to add some joins and how to get our automation working. So you can see here we've got a little model with a few components. The components are listed in the tree over here on the left, and what we're looking to do is add some joints, some relationships to these components to show how they actually interact together. The first and probably the most critical part of that assembly, we're going to select on the support here. I'm going to right click, I'm going to hit ground. What that does is makes that a stationary thing. It can no longer move, and every other part we can pick up and move. So if we grab the other components here, you can see we can sort of move them around and out of the way. I'm just going to turn that sketch off as well. And now it's a case of adding or assembling these with particular joinery. So I'm going to go to assemble and select joint. I want to capture the position they're currently in so that I can work with them a little bit easier. So now what I want to do is I want to zoom in here and I actually want to rotate around. I'm going to select the inside corner edge of our rod there, and I'm going to also select the edge, and you can see those two parts fitting together. Now this is currently got a motion on it, and the motion was lengthways. Now that's not really what we want, so over to the dialog box here, I'm going to select motion, and you can see here it's on slider. We actually want this on revolute. And you can see there the indicator going around. Okay, that's what we want it to do. And we're going to select OK. The same thing we're going to do, or very similar with the wheel onto this rod. The only difference there will be is that we want to actually fix that joint. So we're going to go up to joint again. We'll move that across so that we can see it a little bit. And again, I want to select, so I might actually have to zoom in there, that edge. And the very inside edge. And you can see those two. Now that's got a motion on it as well. We can see it going around and around. We don't want that motion. We want to make that rigid. So we want this wheel and that rod to turn at the same time. So what that means is if we move that, and we're going to select OK. If we grab this and rotate it around, you can see we're rotating our wheel as well. Okay. The next part we want to do is this piece here, our connecting rod. And again, we're going to go up to joint. We want to capture the position. I might just escape out of that because I did have the face selected and that's not really what we're after. Just going to rotate around, select joint, capture the position because we've moved some things. And we might have to zoom in here onto the edge of the ring there. Zooming out. We'll zoom back. It's a little bit fiddly, but it does work very well. Now we put that one on there. You can see it's fixed. Now this one we don't want to be fixed. We want it to move, but we also want this to be a little bit offset. So we don't want it to run right along the edge of the wheel. So I'm going to pull that back. 5 is probably a little too healthy. Let's go with, say, 3. If we go into motion, we want this to revolve, and you can see there it revolving, which is perfect. We're going to select OK. So that's the first couple of relationships we've got there. The next couple are also fairly simple. We're going to move these out of the way a little bit. We want another revolve in the join between these two pieces. So I'm just going to flip around, and again we're going to grab the edge. So up to joint, capture the position. I'm going to select this edge here on the inside, zoom out, rotate around, and I might zoom back in again because I want to grab the inside edge over here. You can see that they now rotate around together. And that's exactly what we want, so we're going to select OK. So we now have, and if we move these, we can see we have movement in here, and we can actually move this in a number of different ways. We now want to add on for us the cylinder, and the cylinder here we're going to do a few things with, but really what we want to do again is up to joint, capture the position. I want to select now the outside, the sort of the sleeve around our piston, and the inside sleeve there. Now this has got a rotation which we don't really want. Instead, what we're after is a sliding action, and we're going to select OK. So you can see this puts it straight back into place. If we zoom out here just a little bit, if we now select this, we can slide this along within the one plane. I want to line that up with where the base of that piston will be. So what I might do is actually drag this right round to the back here, as horizontal as we can go. I might just click right in terms of our view here, so we can sort of get this as close to correct as we can. We're going to pull that one down there. We want to lift this one up. This can take a little bit of fiddling. Essentially, alright, if we place it about there, so you can see there we have our full assemble. The last thing I want to do is select that whole item by double clicking and select ground. That way it's not going to move. We want to capture the position. I wonder what happens if we go back to continue. It goes back to its original position. So instead what I might do is go to ground, capture that position, and we can then move our whole assembly around, and you can see we have that sort of movement. Now if we come over here to the first of our joints, we can right click on there and we can select animate whole model, and you can see there it will do the animation for us. Okay, the other way to get that, and with a few extra features, is actually to come up to assemble, select motion study. And I'm just going to move this around a little bit so we sort of get a bit of a better view. We've got this motion study down here, and we want to select, and I had selected motion study when I already had this Revolution 6 selected, so it's already in here, as you can see under here. Otherwise, double click and it adds it in down in your motion study. You then need to go to 100, which is the total time that this is happening. Select there, we have 49.5 degrees, that's where it's starting. And I want to add, so I want to go with plus 360, this gives us degrees, and select enter. Don't press OK. Select enter. Our graph changes slightly. We then have the play button over here on the side, so we can play our animation. You can see it runs through once. We can choose to go forwards and backwards and go play, and that will go forwards and backwards. or we can choose to have that as a continual loop and have that playing over and over and over again. We can also adjust the speed and really get quite swift in its movement, or we can slow that right down so we can see all the features as they are. For your assessment or for your task, I would be suggesting that you get your motion study going and then just do a screen capture with that as it's moving along to show us your automation. If you finish your motion study, click OK. It then is in a folder up here. We'll select Save. And we have now completed the automation component.